Sidebar for a sec, it's Mother's Day season, which personally I celebrate all year round because moms deserve way more than just a day. And I wanted to take a minute today to thank all the moms out there for everything they do for us, especially my mom, because there is no me without you. Function Health just released a book called Long Live Moms as a reminder that moms need to take care of themselves too. I really loved this excerpt from the book, so I'm just going to read you a quick piece of it. Moms know sacrifice, love stitched tight. They toil, the grit, the sleepless nights. They hold the world yet stand unseen, the quiet force in between. The keepers of the scraped up knees, the magic hands that calm the seas. But wise are moms who pause, who see that caring starts with caring for me. A body strong, a breath drawn deep, a heart that beats, a soul to keep. The years move fast, yet love remains, a bond unbroken, thread through veins. So long live the ones who teach us how to love ourselves, to live well now. Long live the hearts, the wisdom, the care. Long live moms everywhere. If you are a mom or have a mother figure in your life, I'm sure this poem resonates. I feel like it's such a powerful reflection of the sacrifices a mother makes and the love and joy they bring into the world. I literally had to record this twice because I got choked up reading it the first time. If you don't know Function Health, it's an all-in-one health platform that helps you take control of your health through data. Instead of guessing what's happening inside your body, Function helps you know for sure, providing access to 100+ advanced lab tests. These tests include insights into thyroid function, hormones, liver health, heart health, autoimmunity, kidney function, nutrient levels, heavy metal toxicity, immune system, electrolytes, and more. With Function, your first set of tests helps establish a baseline of your health, giving you a starting point to compare future tests against. This makes it easy to spot changes, even subtle ones, and address them proactively. For all my moms out there, Function Health is the best way to care for you so you can continue to care for them. Get Function Health's Long Live Moms book for free at functionhealth.com/capslock and learn more about how Function Health can help you take better care of you. That's functionhealth.com/capslock.
Hey guys, it's Sam and welcome to Caps Lock, a podcast designed to help you live bigger, better, louder, and longer. Before we get started, I just want to thank you guys for listening and for giving this a chance and for coming here in pursuit of your best self. This is a space where we are going to grow together, and I hope that it helps you go forward confidently, unapologetically, and with purpose. It's time to live your life in Caps Lock. If that mission feels aligned for you, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and let's dive in. Good morning, everybody. And before we get into this episode, I implore you to leave Caps Lock a rating or review. Not only does it make my day, but it also helps me reach more ears because when people discover the podcast, they want to see if other people are listening to it and like it. And so every time one of you guys rates or reviews, they get an idea of whether they're going to enjoy the show. And also it indicates to advertisers that you guys actually like what I'm doing, which allows me to keep making the show. It also helps me grow and expand the show. I want to make an amazing show for you, and I love that this is my job. So that's my PSA for the morning. Let's do the show. Today's topic is a little triggery, but I am going to do my best to approach it in a non-triggery way because I just think it's interesting and it's worth talking about, especially because most of us here are women in our 20s, 30s, 40s, all ages really, and we are the group historically affected by this topic the most. And that topic is skinny being very much back in style right now, which I'm honestly surprised by. Skinny has been put on a pedestal and villainized intermittently throughout history, especially recent history. And in our super progressive day and age, I just wasn't expecting it to be the current beauty standard. And before we dive in, I want to call out that I don't mean that people who are skinny, naturally slim, should not feel beautiful and sexy. That is not my agenda. Overall, and I will elaborate more as the episode goes on, I just don't think it's healthy for a certain body type to ever be trending because that's crazy. We're not bags. We're not jewelry. Our bodies should not be objects for commodification despite society's insistence on that very thing. You are born with a set of genetics that is unique to you, that determines what your body looks like at its absolute healthiest. And we are all living in different iterations, if you will, of those bodies, depending on our lifestyle choices, underlying health conditions, eating and exercise habits, and many, many more factors. What we're talking about today is a shift in cultural preference for a singular body type. So we'll talk about how that happens, why it's unhealthy for us at large to buy into that, and all the rest. Honestly, this episode is kind of a history lesson slash vent slash brain dump, and I'm not even sure the whole thing will be coherent because it's so half-baked and it's such a layered conversation to have, especially by yourself, which this is a solo episode, but it just feels like something that's important to talk about. So welcome to the brain dump. I'm glad you're here. We're going to start with the history of the idealized body type. We're going to talk about what it means for a body type to be in and how it becomes trendy or is treated preferentially, and where we are now between all the aesthetic surgeries at our disposal during the Ozempic boom, in the fashion industry, the rise of SkinnyTok, and way more. So let's do it. You guys really loved the history lesson we did in the cannabis episode. And so every once in a while, I think there's just a topic that really lends itself to the history lesson. And this is definitely one of them because it really just underscores the point I'm trying to make, which is that there is no one body type that's always in and that everybody wants all the time. And there shouldn't be, because we can't all achieve all these different body types. If you can achieve one, you can't achieve the other. And sometimes you can't even achieve the one, right? It's crazy. Anyway, the earliest known representations of the female form date back about 25,000 years ago, and they are the European Paleolithic Venus figurines, which are about 15 different carved figurines made of things like clay and bone, whatever they made stuff out of bajillions of years ago. All of these figurines are different, but they have very pronounced female reproductive organs: super wide hips, large breasts, prominent bellies, and full thighs. They are believed to have been crafted during the harshest chapter of the late Pleistocene Ice Age. And even though the name Venus suggests that they were intended as sex symbols, researchers actually have conflicting theories for what these figurines actually represent. Some say they were symbols of hope and survival and longevity during a time when people were super malnourished and dying out because of the harsh climate. Others say they were sex symbols. Some suggest they were symbols of fertility, which fertility may have been rare during the Ice Age, like communities were not having reproductive success. But throughout history, things that were recorded, whether it was in the form of scripture or sculpture or art or what have you, are widely agreed to have been respected or admired. Much of the art and written records researchers have studied over the years are believed to depict gods, goddesses, warriors, royalty, prophets. So basically what I'm saying here is whoever carved these female form figurines did so out of admiration for the female body, whether that's for the purposes of attraction or fertility or worship, making the first ideal female form the kind with huge boobs and pronounced bellies and wide hips and thighs. All over the world, the soft and curvy and voluptuous female body type persisted as the quote-unquote ideal one, so to speak, throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, marked by moments in history like ancient Greece and the Italian Renaissance, which, like, if you look at art from those time periods, all the women have, like, very soft, curvy figures. Anyway, many historians agree that this body type was preferential during this time because fertility and ample weight were considered two main indicators of a woman's health and longevity. If women were super skinny or had underdeveloped breasts, for example, they were perceived as sick or infertile, or their vitality was compromised in some other way. From here on out in history, we're mainly going to talk about Western culture because that's where we live and that's where our conversation is really focused. And in the West, which, you know, for the purposes of our conversation today, mostly means like Western Europe and North America, things started to change around like the 1800s. According to the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History, a man named Sylvester Graham rose to popularity during the 1830s. He was an American minister from New England who is famous for his vehement belief that if you kept your body in physical health, you would also achieve and maintain spiritual health. According to Britannica, he preached a holistic health regimen that included sleeping on a hard mattress, taking cold showers, abstaining from alcohol, making your own bread at home. Fun fact, his coarse bread recipe actually ultimately turned into graham crackers, which now I am craving. Anyway, the regimen also encouraged avoiding meat, spices, condiments, and complex preparations of foods, and focusing your diet on fruits and vegetables. So like literally vegetarianism with homemade bread. His lectures picked up an incredible amount of steam. Like people were freaking out over this guy, and his followers were known as Grahamites. And they formed communes and societies. They held conventions. They published literature preaching the tenets of his practice. And overall, he just had a major influence on Western diet culture in what is now considered just a big key component of the diet reform movement. In short, Sylvester Graham essentially connected this super austere and health-conscious way of living to chastity and spiritual health and morality. So obviously, in a time where the world was already so heavily influenced by organized religion, people following this diet and lifestyle plan were perceived as superior. And it probably comes as no surprise, since they're eating plain single-ingredient foods and abstaining from alcohol, among other things, that they were skinny. Right after Sylvester Graham came this man named William Banting, who was just like a random man in London. He was like literally his job, I think he was like a retired undertaker. But he's this random man, and he was struggling to do daily tasks like bend over to tie his shoes. He was super uncomfortable because he was overweight. When he started having issues with his hearing, like he thought he was going deaf, he went to an ear surgeon named William Harvey, who had recently attended a lecture by the eminent physiologist Claude Bernard, who is now credited with discovering the role the liver plays in diabetes. And he, in his lecture, outlined the concept of glycogen. So William Harvey goes to this lecture, learns all about glycogen and the role the liver plays in diabetes, and then he sees his patient, William Banting, and he formulates a diet program for him that essentially cuts out all the different sources of glycogen. So like bread, butter, milk, sugar, beer, potatoes. And he tells Banting, I want you to mostly eat animal protein, fruit, and non-starchy vegetables. So this guy Banting is like, okay, you think this is going to fix my deafness? And the guy's like, yeah, I think it's related to you being overweight. So Banting starts this diet, loses a ton of weight. It changes his life. It reverses his hearing problems. He feels happier and healthier than ever. And he is like completely evangelized, and now he's a weight loss junkie. So he feels compelled to share this story with the world. So he writes a letter addressed to the public. Reminder, this is just a random man. This is like if I lost 100 pounds and was like, I need to tell everyone about this. He addresses a letter to the public, and it went whatever the 1800s England equivalent of viral is. And it basically became the first well-known diet book. Like, he's just, like, people literally, when in England for a while, Banting was in the dictionary as like dieting. It was like, oh, are you banting? Like, are you dieting? Isn't that crazy? Interestingly, this diet ended up becoming the foundation for a diet we now know and use today, known as the Atkins diet, which is like a super protein-heavy diet plan. And as you can guess, back then, its loyalists were thin because weight loss was the defining result of the program. Around the same time as Sylvester Graham and then William Banting, and going into the next like 60-ish years, the Victorian era was happening in England under the leadership of Queen Victoria. And this is when women were wearing corsets a lot. Like, you can tell from the pictures, and you probably know this kind of loosely in your head. But I didn't know the reason that women were wearing corsets. I thought it was to be skinny. But actually, corsets literally restricted women's ability to move. Yes, you heard that right. They made it difficult for women to move. And that was flaunted around as a status symbol because it separated the wealthy elite from the laborers. Like, their theory was, Well, I can't move, so how could I ever be a laborer? Okay, queen, go off. So anyway, the corset indicated wealth and superiority in Victorian era England. I used to be the queen of searching my symptoms on the internet and going down a rabbit hole of terminal illnesses that I definitely didn't have, but would then lie awake worrying about for weeks. As I reinforced that habit time and time again, the line started to blur between when I should or shouldn't take a symptom seriously. I mean, even if your symptoms match up with a diagnosis on the internet, everyone experiences health issues differently. So there's no way to know if you've got the same thing as that girl on TikTok. But now I know that knowledge is power, so I'd rather see a doctor right away to either soothe my unfounded concerns or get the care I need. And that is where ZocDoc comes in. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. I've used ZocDoc to find all my medical doctors, and it has been a total game changer because I used to have so much trouble finding the overlap between who's a good fit for me, who takes my insurance, and who's available to see me. So take back the power, stop putting off those doctor's appointments, and go to ZocDoc.com/capslock to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/capslock. ZocDoc.com/capslock. So you can sort of already see the progression from like we're loving the full female form to society being interested in thinner appearances. And then skinny got super mainstream in the early 1900s with the development of what is known as the Gibson girl. At the time, Western women were literally first starting to get rights, like human rights, thanks to the women's suffrage movement. And as women started to feel emancipated, they started rejecting the restrictive corsets and other like uncomfortable fashion stylings of the time in favor of a freer and easier look. This man named Charles Dana Gibson, who was a famous satirical illustrator of the time, he basically drew a visual ideal for what people were calling the new woman. So there was this concept of the new woman. She's free, she's liberated, she's emancipated, she's got rights, she can do things like play sports. And he's like, I'm going to draw her like she's a character. And they basically turned her into like, I would call her like the first Barbie, honestly. His illustrations of this type of woman, she was slim and her body was like slightly more athletic than like the previous era because she exercised and she was allowed to play sports and games and she was always dressed in the latest, most stylish fashion. And these illustrations were idealized not just because she was beautiful, but because they showed her in various settings. They showed the Gibson girl riding a bike, playing tennis, playing golf, swimming, playing the violin, creating art, sitting on a jury, riding horses. And women wanted to be able to do these things, to be this like new woman who was liberated and no longer relegated to child rearing and homemaking as their only option for life. So they wanted to be like the Gibson girl, and it just so happened that the Gibson girl was skinny. By the 1920s, women were loving their newfound freedom to do things like enter the workforce, and we started to be a little rebellious. Enter flappers. When women started to have the same rights as men, they realized they wanted more. It was desirable to have the same things as men. So the ideal woman, the woman we wanted to be, emulated some of the other sort of masculine or traditionally boyish attributes besides the ability to work. Tall and flat-chested physiques became desirable. They dumped the corsets and cinched waists for very straight silhouettes, which is why if you ever like look at old flapper dresses or even if you're buying like a costume or something, they're very loose and like kind of straight and they have no like structure. And overall, these women's bodies were slimmer and just more athletic because of the time. Like they're moving around a little bit more, like the food's not super processed yet. And to be all of these things was an indicator that you were a part of the progressive women's liberation movement. Now, from here on out, I'm going to go a bit faster through the remaining eras because we already know a lot more about them since they're a little bit more modern. So between the 1930s and the 50s, we had this big Hollywood boom. And leading women in the films were people like Marilyn Monroe. And these women most often played the love interest in a movie. And as such, they were cast for the male gaze. So they maintained these tiny little waists, but they had huge boobs and lips and hips. And this is all reflected by another big marker of the time, which is the initial publication of Playboy magazine in 1953, which just kind of solidified that the preferred body type for women at that time was determined by what men wanted to see. Then in the 60s and 70s, a few things happened all at the same time that were kind of the main drivers of body type trends. The first one is that people, and especially women, were a lot more active than they were before because they were like allowed to go golfing with their husbands. The second thing is, who was the it girl of the time? Twiggy, of course. And she was wearing super short skirts and really high boots and pixie hairstyles and dramatic makeup. And everyone wanted to be like her, so they emulated her. Now you might be wondering, is she called Twiggy because she's twig fucking thin? Yes. This is actually kind of a cute story. Her boyfriend, when she was young, was a hairdresser, and he called her Twigs because her little limbs were so skinny. And her nickname was like an adaptation of that, and they just like thought it was kind of an iconic stage name, so people urged her to keep it, and she did. But anyway, like the literal it girl of the time being called Twigs should indicate to you where we're going with this, right? And then the third thing that was happening all at the same time is that fashion and media were working more closely together than they had been ever before. But you might wonder, why did they specifically promote the skinny body type? Well, my dad always says if you don't know the answer, it's probably money. And girls wanted to be Twiggy in her tiny little body and her tinier little skirts, so the fashion companies made tiny clothes, and media pushed tiny bodies because people were willing to shell out to look like Twiggy. So skinny just kept being perpetuated and massaged into women's brains as the ideal. So that was the 60s and 70s, and then we're moving into the 80s, and that's when we got our supermodels. We got Cindy Crawford, we got Naomi Campbell, etc. And the 80s were really characterized by the fitness of it all. Like, that's why 80s Halloween costumes are all leg warmers and leotards. Like, everybody was doing aerobics during the 80s. So the body type was a little bit more like strong and athletic, but still like slim and slender. And then in the 90s, we got heroin chic thanks to the Kate Moss types. And as the woman got more and more like modern and free and rebellious, they continued to double down on this like flapper aesthetic, getting skinnier and more boyish than ever. But what's interesting is that throughout the 80s and 90s, we also were introduced to ultra-processed foods. And the processed foods mainly refer to like highly processed convenience foods and snacks, ready-to-eat stuff, often like energy dense and lacking in nutrients and inclusive of various synthetic additives like emulsifiers and colors and artificial sweeteners and flavor enhancers, all that junk. So what's interesting about this kind of confluence of those two things is while people were obsessing over the famous skinny bodies of Cindy, Naomi, Kate, they themselves were starting to gain weight. And in the 90s, there was a sharp increase in the prevalence of obesity. And at that time, it was estimated that 200 million adults worldwide were obese. And then by the year 2000, that number had risen. So in less than 10 years, we're talking sometime in the 90s, up to 2000, that number rose from 100 million adults worldwide total to 300 million, according to the World Health Organization. And we were seeing like just a ton of reporting in the news and in popular media that obesity was bad and dangerous and all the things. So while throughout history until this point, there may have been an idealized body type, this is the first time we're really forced to see skinny versus fat in a super binary way, and that's reinforced time and time and time again in mass media and popular culture. So that kind of persisted into the first 10 years of the 2000s, and then the 2010s were characterized by what feels like the most impossible body standard of all, which is to be both rail thin and also curvy, but only in the right places. The 2010s are tricky for so many reasons. This body type where your waist is tiny and your stomach is flat and your arms and legs are skinny, but you have a huge butt and huge boobs and huge lips so rarely occurs naturally. It was popularized by celebrities like Kim Kardashian, who used just a ton of plastic surgery and fillers and aesthetic treatments, most of which are prohibitively expensive and exclusionary. And it reinforced the confusion that women were already feeling about their bodies. Like, is curvy a good thing or a bad thing? Do we want to be skinny or do we want to be thick? Do we want a butt or do we want a flat stomach? Can we have it all? Sure, but it comes with a price. And no, we don't just mean money. Like, 1 in 3,000 women dies from a BBL, making it one of the most dangerous cosmetic procedures you can get, if not the most dangerous cosmetic procedure. The 2010s are also when social media became ubiquitous, and not only did we start comparing our bodies more than ever to celebrities, but also now to influencers who didn't exist yet, and to each other. And then also, on top of all this, Photoshop and similar photo editing apps made it easy to edit our bodies to look however we want them to online, further promoting these unrealistic beauty standards. In the late 20-teens, and especially in 2020 when the pandemic hit, we saw more body positivity than ever before. And people felt a need to connect online since they couldn't connect in real life. So there was this major surge in vulnerability online as people sought community on social media. And basically, until this past year, we were in this era of extreme body positivity, where the pendulum almost swung in the direction of toxic positivity for plus-size bodies. Like, skinny was being villainized and obesity was being glorified, and there was no middle ground where it was like we truly love all bodies, and we couldn't celebrate a plus-size girl without celebrating the skinny girl, and we couldn't celebrate the skinny girl without celebrating the plus-size girl, and there was just so much talking and fighting about it on the internet. And all of that brings us to 2024 and 2025. And right now, based on the trends that I'm seeing and my own observations, we are still ringing the hollow bells of body positivity while silently and quietly and privately dosing ourselves with weight loss drugs. The Kardashians, who made the BBL mainstream, have reversed a bunch of their procedures, including their BBLs, and they have dissolved their fillers. People started using Ozempic and other weight loss drugs for aesthetic purposes instead of health purposes. Y2K and preppy fashion both came into style, which are historically white-centric, skinny-forward fashion trends. And SkinnyTok is on the rise. #SkinnyTok. We laugh at almond moms, but we're swapping bread for cottage cheese. We praise other people for being plus size, and we secretly take Ozempic. We follow girls online who regurgitate pro-anorexia musings from the Tumblr days, packaged as West Village girl or wellness girl or that girl identities. And it is so fucking confusing. So again, I have a lot of feelings and opinions and thoughts on this, but it's all kind of messy and disorganized because everything is so nuanced, but it's also interconnected and layered. So I'm just going to pull out a couple things that I want to talk about out of everything we've already kind of talked about so far. And I have probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 points here that I want to talk about, but they're not even fully formed opinions. It's almost like I'm giving you prompts to think about on your own time. And I'm going to dose it with my opinion too here and there, but then I'm also going to contradict myself a little bit. And I don't know, I just took a bunch of notes here and was on kind of one of those fever dream tears. Ooh, sorry, I hit the mic. So let's just see what this sounds like. So the first thing I want to pull out is that societal priorities have dictated body type trends going back as far as we can remember. Our bodies, women's bodies, at any given moment are a reflection of our society's values. In the Ice Age, people aspired to health and vitality and fertility, so women with big boobs and wide hips were idolized. In the 1830s, people prioritized religion, so they ate diets that they believed would bring them closer to God, and those diets made them skinny. In the Victorian era, it was all about wealth and status, so they stuffed themselves into corsets that separated them from the laborers and made their waists minuscule. In the 20s, women aspired to emulate the freedom and the independence of men, so they wore boxy clothes that de-emphasized their natural curves and aspired to boyish silhouettes. In the Hollywood era, hourglass figures were all the rage because men made and spent money on things like Playboy. And in the 90s, the fashion industry was booming, so everyone wanted to be skinny like the models. So when I look at where we are now, in a world where people are celebrating curves on other people, but secretly trying to attain thinness for themselves, it just makes me wonder what our values are. Are the ones we have for ourselves different than the ones we think we should have? The ones that we know will be better received by the public? As a society, we still value the fashion economy and pop culture, but we've also grown to value diversity and inclusion. And as diversity and inclusion are rolled back by our president, and election tallies indicate that we as a country care more about the economy than our neighbors' rights, we show our true colors. What we say and what we do are so radically different because one is what we really want, and the other is what we know we should want because it's the right thing, it's the ethical thing. It's a really interesting experiment to look at society's ideal female body type at any given moment and see it as a mirror for the values of the time. And I think right now in 2025, it's so easy to look back and be like, they prioritized religion, so they ate the God diet, and they prioritized wealth, so they wore a corset. But when you're in it, it's very hard to step back and look at it in such a macro way. But I do encourage you to do so. And if you have a group of friends that is like open-minded and intellectual and able to have a conversation like this without getting offended or like blowing up, I think it's a really interesting one. And again, this isn't even like an opinion for me. It's just an observation and almost just a prompt for you to think about yourself. The second thing that really sticks out to me about this conversation is that men are so often in control of the narrative around women's bodies. When they wanted babies, they loved the curvy, voluptuous female form. When they wanted us closer to God, they controlled what we ate as a means to get us there. When they illustrated the new woman, we became her. When we started getting the same rights as men, we wanted to dress like them. When they wanted to fuck us, they put those of us with hourglass figures in the centerfold and on the movie screens. And by that point, we were so brainwashed by their obsession with our bodies that we became obsessed with our bodies all on our own and started picking ourselves apart and controlling the trends and engaging in all the toxic discourse with or without them. I don't actually want a world without men because I was very blessed to get such good ones, but I genuinely wonder if we would even have body image issues without men. Think about how often you choose to wear sweatpants and no makeup when you're just hanging out with your girlfriends versus what you put on when you know you're going to see guys, right? And also, now that we do it ourselves, all the, insecurity and picking ourselves and each other apart, doesn't it feel a little bit like maybe men orchestrated that from the very beginning to control us, and now they're watching us do it ourselves like some twisted little puppet masters whose only goal in life was to control us for their own pleasure? Sorry for wearing my tinfoil hat, but how do people not think like this? Like, how do people not spiral all the way down? Okay, another thing I want to pull out from the conversation is that the entire body image industry is and has always been white and Euro-centric. Black women and Latina women have historically been curvy. And while there are obviously a million exceptions to this rule, the industry excludes them more than anyone else in a demographic, that demographic being women, that is already so underrepresented and marginalized. While not all white women have the genetic disposition for being flat and skinny, Black and Latina women are even less likely to be able to achieve that. And then the features they inherited from their ancestors, which they are, by the way, shamed for when skinny is in vogue, are co-opted for quote-unquote trends that white women can borrow and edit and discard at their will, which is like grotesque and unfair. And then there's a conversation around how Black and Latina women who are naturally skinny, who are naturally flat and straight, don't have natural curves. They feel excluded from their own communities and alienated from their own identities if they don't have the boobs or they don't have the butt. So then they're going to get boob jobs and BBLs. And all of that is so dangerous, right? Whether you're a Black woman, a Latina woman, a white woman, whatever, getting your BBL and your boob job, like I said earlier, the BBL is quite possibly the most dangerous and deadly cosmetic procedure you can get. So when women act in pursuit of a body type that they can't achieve naturally, they are just put at this enormous health risk. The same thing goes for liposuction, boob jobs, all that. Here's another thing. Today, Celebrities and influencers are the undisputed authority on what is in. Like, how is it that Brazilian women have been curvy for centuries, but the Kardashians popularized the BBL? We are all pursuing a beauty standard set by someone with millions of dollars and incredible access to top doctors and priority care, none of which we have at the same level as they do. So if Kim K wants a BBL, she is not likely to be the 1 out of 3,000 women who dies. But if someone with a normal income from a suburban town in the Midwest wants a BBL, her likelihood of complication is going to be way higher. And not to mention, the celebrities and influencers we idolize are lying to us. Let's just say it out loud. The quiet part needs to get loud right now. They're lying to us about what they're doing. And the truth is, when you're in the business of influencing, you are in the business of showing other people what it's like to be you and how to achieve it. That's what an influencer does. That's what an influencer is. As one, I can tell you that. And when you show your audience that you grew a huge butt or you lost 60 pounds or achieved perfect skin seemingly overnight, and then you tell them like, oh, it's my wellness journey. I slaved away in the gym, or I ate healthier, or I started getting 10K steps a day, and then they try it and they don't get the same results, they feel like there's something wrong with them. But then it comes out you've been on Ozempic this whole time, which is just a blatant betrayal of the very people who made you who you are. You profited off the backs of vulnerability and insecurity of these women, but you want to be skinny. And you want to gatekeep how you did it? Because why? Are you embarrassed? Are you ashamed? Do you want to make sure no one else can access that because like it's just for you? And I do want to say, like, when it comes to celebrities and influencers, I think something done out of necessity for your health can be private, and that is totally fair. There's literally HIPAA for that, right? But when it's purely cosmetic and you go out and you lie about what you're doing, it pisses me off, and I think it's really unfair. That said, I'm going to go ahead and now kind of like play the other side of this statement with the following statement, with what I'm going to say next, which is that body positivity, it means celebrating bodies, healthy bodies of all shapes and sizes, right? And contrary to popular belief, suddenly, skinny people can also be strong and healthy. This has come up a lot in the last couple of years on social media, and I think, at least I've seen it a lot, and it drives me crazy. Villainizing skinny is not inclusive. By definition, that is exclusionary behavior, and accusing people of having eating disorders or diagnosing them online with various conditions or punishing them for using unhealthy methods to attain their body type when you have no idea what they're really doing is so fucked up. And it goes both ways, and this is kind of me debunking literally everything I just said. Obesity is a literal disease, right? It has negative health implications, and being obese is not recommended if you want to live a long and healthy and comfortable life. But we also can't determine someone's body fat percentage or blood glucose level or HDL cholesterol from a TikTok. Whether they are curvy or stick thin, if you are not someone's doctor, you do not know whether they are healthy. Plain and simple. And I really wish people would just stop making accusations or assumptions online about what everyone else is doing, whether they're healthy, like that kind of stuff, because we literally, quite simply, just don't know. And like I said a couple times now, I realize this is sort of in conflict with my point about celebrities and influencers having a responsibility to be transparent about their lifestyle choices. So to be honest, I'm not even sure how to reconcile this, but maybe we do an episode with an influencer about the balance of kind of maintaining your privacy versus sharing responsibly on social media, because it really is so tricky. It's such a gray area, and there's just no world in which everybody wins all the time. So I don't know. I guess I just like arguing for both sides. So it's food for thought. Okay, another thing. And another thing. That's what I feel like every time I say that. SkinnyTok is growing so fast right now, and I think it's largely rooted in restrictive dieting, unhealthy habits, dangerous ideals, all that fun stuff. I watched about 1 million SkinnyTok videos while I was researching to write this episode, and a couple of things I think are true. One is that It's okay to want to look a certain way as long as you're doing it healthily. As long as you're eating enough to sustain your body, you're moving it in a way that's safe, you're prioritizing wellness over thinness. A big thing I see on SkinnyTok that I do not like is calorie deficit at all costs. And then, they're like, all you have to do to lose weight is be in a calorie deficit. And then the entire video, they eat like 1,000 calories, which is not enough for most adults. And half of it is like protein bars, which are most of them ultra-processed foods that are not eaten for health, but these girls are eating them in pursuit of aesthetic weight loss, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone. Like, if I'm going to tell you what I'm eating, I'm not telling you so that you can lose weight. I'm telling you so that you can be healthy. And if your body responds to a healthy lifestyle change by losing weight, that's awesome. If it doesn't, that's also awesome, right? Like, we are in pursuit of healthy bodies, not skinny bodies. That's what I want for us. And so SkinnyTok really puts a bad taste in my mouth. And then it's also important for us as users, I think, and something that like we really put all the burden on the creators, but I think it's time to shoulder some of the burden ourselves and take accountability ourselves, because it's important to wear our critical thinking caps when we're consuming this content, right? Like, we all know that what works for Jessica from Florida might not work for us. And it's very important that we adapt anything we take away from this content for our own lifestyles and our own bodies. Now, I'm not going to pretend that a lot of the latest kind of body image drama doesn't probably stem, at least partly, from health and wellness creators perpetuating this hyperfixation on our bodies. We are totally thrown off balance here, right? Our bodies, what they are vessels for love and for life and for experiences and for our souls. And we want to live long and healthy lives, but I sometimes wonder if we are just way too focused on our bodies and not enough on the big picture, like the purpose of life, if you will. I'm definitely guilty of this as someone who's interested in health, so I do want to take some accountability. Like, half the time I'm so worried about what my body looks like and what I'm eating and how my clothes look on me that I need to breathe and be like, whoa, let's refocus on the point. Let's come back to the purpose. And, to my credit a little bit, I really do think and talk much more about how to feel good than how to look good. But in some ways, they're also inextricably linked. So I do think that maybe sometimes it's good to gauge kind of our own personal meters on just like how much fixation we can tolerate. I guess the last thing I want to say today, even though I feel like this is way more the beginning of a conversation than the end of it, is that bodies, like I said earlier, are not accessories. Like I said, every single body on this earth is a little bit different from the next one. And everybody's body looks different at different times in their life, at different times of the month, at different times of the day. So choosing one body out of 7.5 billion bodies and idealizing it at scale is just so incredibly dangerous, because the number of people who can have that body is one. And there are so many people who can likely achieve a similar body, but many, many, many more who cannot do so without resorting to unhealthy habits. I feel like while our culture shifts to such a major focus on health and wellness in these last couple of years, it's important to consider that unrealistic beauty standards work in direct conflict, direct opposition to the concept of living well. Wellness is holistic. It's not just about your body. It's also about your mind. And it is high time we start treating our bodies and our minds with a lot more care, because we need them both to survive. And it doesn't matter how skinny you are if you're in the fucking grave. Anyway, I'm going to call it here because I really feel like this was more of a vent than a fully formed thought. And like it was the beginnings of like 200 different thoughts. But I do want to continue this conversation. So maybe some things spin out of it. Maybe that episode with an influencer about balancing privacy and sharing responsibly. Maybe talking more about the confluence of wellness and body shapes, whatever else comes to mind. Please, please, this is one that I really want you to share with your friends as a conversation starter. This is also one that I really want you to engage with me with. I would love if you would drop a comment or send me a DM. I just want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear if anything stuck out to you, if there's any particular topic you heard in the episode that you want me to double click on, if you want me to put anything in caps lock, or if you just want to contribute to the conversation or request a specific follow-up episode. As usual, I am here for you and you only, so let me know what you think. I would love to keep going on this. I think we're on to something. Thank you guys again from the bottom of my heart for giving Caps Lock a chance. If you liked this episode, please stick around for more because we have some really interesting topics coming up, including manifestation, nervous system regulation, hair loss, food oils, and I don't even know, 100 different topics. I had this amazing registered dietitian on, and we talked about ultra-processed foods, seed oils, alcohol, all of the different things. And it's really interesting, so stick around for that. Some will be solo episodes and some will feature scientists, founders, experts, doctors, and other very cool, smart people. If there's a topic you want to hear about on Caps Lock, send me a message. And lastly, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Life in Caps Lock. Hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Leave me a rating or review, and tune in next Sunday at 8 a.m. for another episode of Caps Lock. Okay. Love you guys. Talk soon.